Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. There are tons of resources out there and tons of videos all about wedding planning now, especially now with platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Many of them are great, but some are not so great. So I went through and picked out what I thought was some of the best wedding planning tips on TikTok. I've actually seen a lot of videos on this, and I love that it's being spread around so much, and that is to have your officiant move out of the way when you do your first kiss at your ceremony. And this is something that I always go over during the rehearsal, and so it's something I've told my officiants and my clients all the time. And that is, so when you go in for your first kiss, typically, you're facing each other and your officiant is right behind you. If they just kind of take a step to the left or the right, when you guys go in for your first kiss, your photos are going to be so much better without some person just kind of lingering in the background or in the way of your kiss or distracting what that initial first kiss photo should look like. The second one is to have one of your friends, maid of honor, bridesmaids, whoever it might be, in charge of taking a bunch of photos and videos behind the scenes when your photographer is not around. This will be probably in the morning before your photographer gets there. If you have one of those friends that's always filming everything, making reels, making TikToks, posting on Snapchat, everyone always has one of those friends in the group. Have them in charge of taking all of these behind the scenes footage before your photographer gets there or during moments that your photographer is not present. This way you do have some of these special moments that are just a little bit more candid, a little bit more fun, and not so formal or poised for the camera as your photos will be with your photographer around. But I want to emphasize to make sure you're doing this when your photographer is not around, because your photographer does not want to be taking pictures of your bridesmaids holding their own phones. So just do this when your photographer is not around and during those moments that aren't being captured by the professional. Number 3, have extra shoes. Yes, yes, yes. Not only shoes to change into at the end of the night when you're dancing, but also just shoes that you can walk in when you're going to take photos. Sometimes if you're going to do your first look or sunset photos, you might be walking through dirt or mud or something, and if you have really nice pretty wedding shoes that you don't want to get dirty, have an extra pair of shoes that you can use just to kind of like truck through things and while you're walking around, then separate shoes that you have that are going to be photographed or seen by your guests. Another tip that I've seen a lot of people talk about is using some sort of platform like All Seated to make your floor plan or layout. This is a program that I use a lot for my clients, and you can actually go in and physically make your layout based on the dimensions of your venue and even assign seats and make a whole seating chart on this platform. Number 5, walk slowly down the aisle. Something that you may not think of or realize that it's even an issue, but a lot of times on the wedding day when the nerves are in, a lot of people's initial reaction is to kind of rush down the aisle, and you want to make sure that you are taking your time and don't walk super fast down the aisle. Speaking of rushing things, also don't rush your first kiss. Don't just give it a little peck and be done with it. You want to make sure that this moment is captured by your photographer. So count to 3, do something, and communicate with your partner that you want to make sure that this is getting captured and that you have potentially more than one photo of your first kiss, so that it is for sure captured. Another thing that I've seen a lot of videos on are reading private vows, and I love when my couples do this, whether that is during your first look, either privately, like you're not seeing each other. I've seen people do this in place of a first look, so on the other side of a door or somewhere where you can't see one another, but you can still read out loud to each other your vows, or doing it after your first look when you can see each other, or I've even had couples do a private reading of their vows before their actual formal ceremony or right after the formal ceremony. That way, if you are either nervous or kind of stage fright to read your personal vows in front of all of your guests, you can still have these very personal and meaningful vows to one another without it being completely seen by everybody at your wedding. Also, make a day of timeline. Yes, 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 yes. I've said this so many times, and if you are not having a wedding coordinator, you're going to need to do this yourself. I do have a video all about making a day of timeline, so you can take a peek at that. Another thing I've seen a few former brides talk about is having a credit card that has high rewards or mileage or some kind of points back to use for your wedding purchases. And this is a great idea if you are somebody that is responsible and you can keep track of these purchases and your finances very well, and you're not spending money that you can't pay back. So if you're just using the same purchases and using this credit card as you would a debit card, where you're using that to pay for items and then you're automatically paying them off right away, then this is a great way to earn back cash back that you can help use towards your expenses and get money back at the end, or maybe you use a SkyMile credit card that can pay for your honeymoon. So there's ways to be a little bit creative when it comes to paying for things at your wedding. Just make sure you're not spending money that you wouldn't already spend if it was coming directly out of your bank account. Another tip is to have your maid of honor or your officiant or somebody with pockets have tissues. So during your ceremony, you can have quick access to tissues if you do start to cry, which you probably will. And finally, snacks. We all love snacks. Make sure that you have planned some sort of food, snack, brunch, breakfast, whatever, prior to your wedding day or prior to your ceremony, as most likely you guys will be getting ready early in the morning and there's going to be hours worth of time before you're actually going to be able to eat at your wedding. So have some sort of plan for snacks or for lunch or for breakfast to be brought in for you and everybody else that is going to be with you. Again, there are tons of resources out there when it comes to planning your wedding, all over Instagram, all over TikTok. Some are great, some are not so great, but hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.